The morning on New Haven 3 started like any other. The orbital colony's artificial sunlight poured down through the transparent ceiling panels, casting warm gold light over the floating market. Ships drifted silently in the distance beyond. The glass dome, their hulls glowing with reflected light from the nearby star. Vendors called out their offers in a dozen different languages, selling everything from steaming bowls of noodles to miniature floating gardens in glass spheres. Malik Carter weaved through the crowd, his small toolkit bouncing at his side. He was only 12, but everyone in his neighborhood knew him as the boy who could fix almost anything. Broken cleaning drones, loose wiring in air vents, cracked display screens. Malik would tinker until it worked again. His mother often told him he had clever hands and a quick mind, but Malik preferred to stay unnoticed. He liked to work quietly and spend his credits on spare parts instead of attention. Today, he was on his way to deliver a repaired data pad to a merchant near the tram station. The station was the busiest place in the colony because the cargo trams connected the market level to the industrial zones. Malik usually stayed clear of it during rush hours. The trams were fast, heavy, and dangerous if you got too close to the rails. As he approached the edge of the market, he heard the low rumble of an incoming tram. The sound echoed through the metal floor, deep and steady like a heartbeat. Malik glanced toward the track. A maintenance warning sign blinked red, above the rail line. He remembered hearing about some ongoing repairs to the gravity stabilizers in that sector. That meant the tram would be running with more sway than usual, and the safety barriers might not engage as fast as they should. Then he saw her. A small girl, maybe 5 years old, stood far too close to the track. She was holding a brightly colored toy in one hand and waving at a floating vendor drone with the other. The crowd around her seemed not to notice her position. People were busy haggling over prices, carrying heavy crates, or checking schedules on their wrist screens. The girl's mother was nowhere in sight. Malik's chest tightened. He looked down the rail and saw the tram rounding the curve. It was huge, a rectangular machine loaded with cargo containers moving faster than any human could run. The magnetic hum of the rail intensified. The child took a tiny step forward. Malik's instincts screamed at him. He didn't think about what he should do. He simply moved. He pushed past a pair of traders carrying boxes, earning surprised looks as he slipped between them. He dodged around a family with a floating stroller. The tram's warning klaxon blared, sharp and urgent. A few people stopped and looked toward the track, but they were still too far to act. Malik knew he had seconds at most. Ahead of him was the maintenance zone. A section of the tram station floor was partially dismantled for repairs. Panels were missing, revealing a maze of cables and glowing coils beneath. The stabilizing field here was weak. Every few seconds, the pull of gravity shifted slightly, making people stumble if they were not careful. Malik could take the safe route around the zone, but that would add precious seconds. Seconds the little girl did not have. He gritted his teeth and jumped onto the exposed metal plates. His boots clanged loudly. The sudden gravity shift pulled at him sideways almost, throwing him off balance. He bent his knees, spread his arms, and kept moving. Beneath him, bright sparks flickered from an open power conduit. The crowd began to notice now. Voices rose in alarm. Someone shouted for him to stop. Malik ignored them. The girl was still. Near the track, her head turned toward the incoming tram, fascinated by its size and the lights on its front. She had no idea of the danger. The tram roared closer. Malik's mind measured the distance, 4 seconds until it reached her. 3 seconds. The magnetic pull from the rail tugged at the tools in his belt, making them clink together. The air smelled faintly of ozone. He leapt over a gap where a metal plate was missing, his heart pounding hard enough to feel in his throat. The crowd gasped. He landed on the far side, knees bending to absorb the shock. The tram's lights blazed. In his eyes, 2 seconds left. Malik sprinted the last few steps, his boots gripping the textured floor. The girl finally turned toward him, confused by the sudden movement. Her wide brown eyes blinked up at him. Malik reached out, his hand closing around her small wrist. 1 second. He yanked her backward with all his strength, pulling her clear of the rail just as the tram thundered past. The sound was deafening. The rush of displaced air made Malik stumble, but he kept his grip on the girl. The massive machine blurred past them, a wall of steel and containers rushing toward the industrial sector. The moment it was gone, the platform fell silent except for the fading hum of the tram's magnets. Malik looked at the girl. She was clutching her toy tightly, breathing fast but unharmed. He realized his own hands were trembling. A few nearby people finally rushed forward. A man, in a trader's vest, knelt beside the girl, asking if she was all right. A woman put a hand on Malik's shoulder, her face pale. But Malik didn't answer right away. His mind was still caught in the image of what could have happened if he had been 1 second slower. The girl gave him a shy smile. "Thank you," she said in a small voice. Only then did Malik let out the breath he had been holding. The sound of the tram faded into the distance, but Malik's heartbeat still thundered in his ears. He could feel the weight of what had just happened. The little girl was safe, yet the moment replayed in his mind over and over. The blinding lights, the ground tilting under him, the powerful pull toward the rail. The woman who had placed her hand on Malik's shoulder guided the girl toward the edge of the crowd. "Find her mother," she called to someone. A man ran off in the direction of the market stalls. People were speaking in quick, urgent voices. Some looked at Malik with wide eyes, others with a kind of respect that made him uneasy. Malik stepped back, not wanting to be in the center of attention. He preferred to be unnoticed. But the crowd did not part easily. He could hear snippets of their talk. "That boy just jumped the maintenance zone. He could have been pulled right in. I have never seen someone move that fast. He glanced back at the maintenance area he had crossed. The exposed plates seemed even more dangerous now that the moment had passed. In one corner, a loose cable sparked and hissed faintly. A maintenance droid floated nearby, scanning the damaged section, its sensors clicking softly. Malik knew the repair crews would not have been able to act in time. No safety field could have stopped that tram at full speed. He started to turn away, thinking about going home, but then a sharp sound echoed from the track. It was the tram's warning klaxon again. Malik's head snapped up. Another tram was coming, this one from the opposite direction. The magnetic hum grew quickly, and Malik realized it was moving at full freight speed. His eyes darted toward the girl, who was now clinging to the woman's arm. They were far from the track, out of danger. Malik's shoulders loosened a little, but then he noticed something else. A maintenance worker halfway across the same danger zone Malik had just crossed. The man was kneeling over a control box, tools spread out around him. He was wearing ear protection, probably to block the noise of his repair work, and he had not heard the tram's signal. Malik's stomach tightened. The worker was positioned dangerously close to the edge of the track, and the magnetic sway would be even worse for someone kneeling down. Malik looked at the crowd. People had noticed the approaching tram, but no one was moving toward the worker. The maintenance zone was still unstable, and the risk of crossing it now was even higher. The tram was less than 10 seconds away. Malik's thoughts raced. He could shout, but the worker might not hear. He could try to throw something, but the tools at his belt were heavy and not meant for throwing. His mind replayed the steps he had taken only minutes earlier. The jumps, the gravity shifts, the sparks beneath his boots. The decision formed before he even realized it. Malik dropped the repaired data pad he had been carrying and ran. The crowd called out in surprise as he leapt back onto the dangerous plates. This time, the pull of the magnetic field was even stronger. His boots slid slightly on the smooth surface. He kept his balance by leaning into the pull, just like he had done when climbing the steep ladders in the ventilation shafts back home. 7 seconds. He leapt over the same gap as before, landing closer to the worker. Sparks showered from a cable above, briefly lighting the space in harsh white light. The worker still had not looked up. 5 seconds. Malik shouted now, his voice loud enough to echo against the station's steel walls. The worker finally turned, confusion written on his face. Then his eyes widened as he saw the tram's lights approaching. 4 seconds. Malik extended his hand. "Get up!" he shouted. The worker grabbed his tools and scrambled to his feet. He was older, slower, his balance thrown off by the gravity shifts. 3 seconds. The worker tried to step forward but stumbled as the ground tilted. Malik reached out and grabbed his arm, pulling hard. 2 seconds. The pair staggered together, barely reaching the safe edge of the platform as the tram roared past. The wind from its passage rattled the loose panels in the maintenance zone. Malik and the worker stood frozen for a heartbeat, the noise of the tram swallowing every other sound. When the tram was gone, the worker let out a shaky breath. "You just saved me," he said, his voice hoarse. "I did not even hear it coming." Malik shrugged, still breathing hard. "You were too close to the track," he replied. The crowd that had been watching from a distance began to cheer. Some clapped, others waved toward Malik. He felt heat rise in his face. He had never been the center of attention like this before. The worker bent down and picked up the data pad Malik had dropped. He handed it back with a small nod of thanks. Malik accepted it, unsure of what to say. He looked toward the market, again wondering if he could slip away before more people started asking questions. But slipping away would not be easy. 2 station security officers were making their way through the crowd toward him. Their uniforms were dark blue with silver trim, and the badges on their chests bore the emblem of New Haven 3. Malik knew they would want to talk to him about what had happened. Behind them, the woman who had rescued the little girl earlier was speaking with another officer. The girl stood beside her, still holding her toy, but now with a calmer expression. When she spotted Malik, she waved shyly. Malik gave a small wave back. He could feel the eyes of the crowd still on him. Somewhere deep inside, part of him wanted to disappear into the side streets and return to his quiet life of repairing drones and screens. Another part of him, however, felt something different. A sense that what he had done today was important. Maybe more important than he understood. The security officers reached him. One of them, a tall man with a calm voice, said, "We need to ask you about what happened. Can you come with us for a few minutes?" Malik nodded. The crowd began to part, letting the officers escort him toward a quieter section of the station. People whispered as he passed. He did not know what would happen next, but he felt a strange mix of nerves and pride. He had not planned to be a hero today. He had simply made 2 split-second choices. And now, those choices were drawing the attention of the entire colony. The station security officers led Malik toward a quieter platform area. The crowd slowly began to return to their business, but the memory of what they had just seen stayed in their minds. Conversations about the incident spread quickly through the market level. People described every detail to friends and strangers alike. Some claimed they had seen Malik leap across gaps in the floor like a trained acrobat. Others insisted they had never seen anyone move that fast in unstable gravity. Near one of the food stalls, an elderly vendor named Thomas leaned on his counter and shook his head. "That boy was faster than any service droid I have ever seen," he said to a group of customers. "I thought he would fall into the cables, but he did not even slow down." At another stall, a young merchant named Rila was showing her wrist. Screened to 2 traders. The screen displayed a shaky video clip of the rescue, recorded by her stall's security camera. The image showed Malik crossing the damaged plates, sparks flying under his boots, and pulling the girl to safety a split second before the tram passed. The traders leaned closer to watch. "That could have been the end for both of them," one trader said, his voice low. If he had been even one step slower, the tram would have... He stopped himself, shaking his head. The story traveled quickly through the docking sector as well. Workers unloading cargo from a freighter began talking about the boy who had risked his life in the maintenance zone. Many had worked near tram lines before and understood how dangerous it was. They knew the magnetic pull could throw a grown man off his feet, let alone a 12-year-old boy. Meanwhile, inside the station's small security office, Malik sat in a chair across from Officer Hale, the tall man who had spoken to him earlier. Officer Hale's partner, Officer Wren, stood near the doorway, making notes on a tablet. "You understand that what you did was extremely dangerous," Hale said, his tone firm but not unkind. "The maintenance zone is off limits during tram operations for a reason. You could have been badly injured." Malik nodded. "I know. But the girl was too close to the track. I had to get her away." Hale studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "You did save her. And from what?" "I hear you also pulled a maintenance worker out of danger when the second tram came through." Malik shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He did not hear it coming. I could not just leave him there. Wren looked up from her tablet. "Most people would have waited for security to act. You didn't wait." Malik shrugged. There was no time. Outside the security office, more people gathered in small groups to discuss the event. A few were replaying the video on their personal devices, showing it to anyone who had not seen it yet. The clip spread fast across the colony's internal network, tagged with words like bravery and hero. At the tram station's observation deck, an alien trader from the Akaran Alliance named Sira watched the replay on a holographic display. Her 4 eyes blinked slowly as she studied Malik's movements. A human standing beside her said, "It was reckless. He could have been killed." Sira tilted her head. "Perhaps, but such instinct to protect another without thought of self is rare. Among my people, such acts are sung about for generations." Back in the market, the little girl's mother had been found. She was a tall woman with tired eyes, carrying 2 heavy shopping bags. She hugged her daughter tightly, tears of relief in her eyes as she listened to the woman who had helped pull the child away from the crowd earlier. The girl tried to explain what happened in her own words, waving her toy around as she spoke. When the mother heard that Malik had been the one to save her child, she looked around the market as if expecting to see him still there. But by then, Malik was finishing his talk with the officers. Officer Hale stood and extended a hand to Malik. "You can go now. There will be an official report, but you are not in trouble. Just try to stay away from danger zones in the future." Malik shook his hand and stepped outside. The bright lights of the market felt different now. People noticed him when he walked past. A few nodded to him. Some gave small smiles. One worker in a loading vest gave him a short, respectful bow. Malik kept moving, unsure how to react. As he passed a screen mounted on the wall, he saw his own image playing in a news clip. The headline read, "Young Technician Risks Life to Save Child and Worker." His stomach twisted at the sight. He had never been on a public broadcast before. He turned toward the quieter side streets of the colony, hoping to slip away. But before he could, a voice called his name. It was the girl's mother, walking quickly toward him with her daughter. She stopped in front of him, still holding her child close. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. "You saved my little girl. I will not forget this." Malik shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "I am just glad she is safe." The girl looked up at him and gave another small wave. "You run fast," she said simply. Malik smiled a little at that. "Sometimes you have to," he replied. They parted ways, and Malik continued toward the residential sector. He thought the days, events might finally be over. But in the upper decks of New Haven 3, in offices where trade routes and diplomatic messages were discussed, Malik's name was already being mentioned. His actions had been noticed not just by the people who saw them, but by systems far beyond. The orbital colony. By the end of the day, Malik's quiet life would no longer be as quiet as he wished. The platform shook under the force of the tram's magnetic coils. Malik's hands tightened around the girl's wrist. The tram was less than an arm's length away, moving so fast it became a blur of steel and light. The air felt heavy, charged, with static from the magnetic rail. Every hair on Malik's arms stood on end. The safety field above the rail flickered weakly because of the maintenance problem. Normally, it would have pushed anything too close away from danger. Today it was unreliable. Malik could feel its unstable pulses brushing against his arm like faint gusts of wind. He pulled the girl toward him with all his strength. The magnetic force tried to drag them both toward the track. Malik's boots scraped across the metal floor as he fought to stay balanced. For a terrifying second, he thought they would both be pulled in. Then his tool belt saved him. A coiled safety cable attached to the belt swung loose and hooked onto a low-maintenance rung on the platform wall. The tug on his waist nearly knocked him sideways, but it stopped their slide toward the track. Malik wrapped an arm around the girl's shoulders and pulled her close, using his other hand to grab the rung as well. The tram thundered past, the wind from its movement pressing hard against them. Malik's eyes watered from the rush of air. The noise was so loud it drowned out every other sound in the station. The girl's small hands clung to his shirt as tightly as they could. They spun slightly in the low gravity as the safety cable pulled them against the wall. Malik planted his boots firmly and braced himself until the tram had passed completely. It felt like a long time, but in truth it was only a few seconds before the final container car vanished into the distance. Silence returned to the platform except for the faint hum of the rail cooling down. Malik released his grip on the rung and steadied himself. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide. She still had her toy in one hand, held as tightly as she had held him. "Are you hurt?" Malik asked. His voice sounded strange to him, rough from breathing hard. The girl shook her head. "No, I am fine." Relief washed over him, but he kept a careful hold on her until he was sure they were far enough from the track. He guided her toward the safe zone of the platform, moving slowly in case the gravity shifted again. As they stepped onto solid ground, the crowd that had gathered erupted into shouts and calls. People rushed toward them, some kneeling to check the girl, others speaking quickly into their comm devices. Malik could see the woman who had been trying to reach the girl earlier, pushing through the crowd with a look of shock and relief. The girl was lifted gently into the woman's arms. Malik stepped back, feeling suddenly very aware of all the eyes on him. A tall trader with a deep voice spoke from nearby. "That was the closest thing I have seen to a miracle in this station." "You had no time to think, boy, you just moved." Malik was not sure how to answer. He did not feel like a miracle worker. His chest was still tight, his hands still shaking from the effort. He only knew he had seen someone in danger and acted before fear could stop him. The woman holding the girl nodded toward him. "You saved her life. You have my thanks." Malik gave a small nod in return, but said nothing. The crowd was still buzzing with conversation when a loud alert came from the tram control tower. A deep voice announced over the platform speakers, "Incoming tram on opposite track, please. Stand clear." Everyone turned toward the sound. Malik felt his stomach drop. The opposite track was the one that ran right beside the maintenance zone. He thought of the loose cables and missing plates. He thought of how close the last tram had come to disaster. And then he saw the maintenance worker. The man was kneeling near an open control box inside the danger zone, his back turned to the incoming tram. His ear protectors blocked out the noise of the crowd and the warning signal. Malik realized instantly that the worker was in even greater danger than the girl had been. He did not hesitate. The girl was safe now, held tightly in her mother's arms. Malik turned and ran toward the damaged section again. Voices shouted after him, but he was already leaping onto the first unstable plate. The magnetic pull from the approaching tram was even stronger this time. It made his boots skid slightly on the smooth surface. Sparks from the damaged cables flashed near his feet. He reached the worker in seconds, shouting as loud as he could. The man turned his head, saw the tram's lights, and froze. Malik grabbed his arm and hauled him upright. The worker stumbled as the gravity shifted again, nearly falling sideways. Malik tightened his grip and pulled hard. The two of them stumbled together toward the edge of the safe zone. The tram's roar filled Malik's ears. He could feel the air being sucked toward the rail. They reached the platform just as the first car shot past, the wind tugging at their clothes. They stopped only when they were well clear of the track. The worker bent over, breathing hard, and muttered, "You just saved me. I had no idea it was coming." Malik stepped back, his pulse still racing. 2 rescues in less than a minute. The crowd was now in complete awe. People clapped, others shouted his name, and someone recorded the entire thing on a wrist camera. For Malik, the noise around him felt distant. He glanced toward the girl in her mother's arms. She was smiling at him now, waving her toy. Malik allowed himself a small smile back. He knew he would remember this day for a long time, not because of the attention, but because he had acted when it mattered most. The platform was no longer a place of rushing commuters and busy traders. It had transformed into a gathering point, full of people speaking in excited voices. The energy in the air felt different now. People were not thinking about their daily business anymore. They were talking about one boy and what he had just done. Malik stood near the edge of the crowd, trying to keep a low profile, but it was impossible. Everywhere he looked, eyes followed him. Some people nodded in quiet respect. Others stepped forward to thank him. A few asked if they could take a picture. Malik shook his head politely, not wanting to be treated like a celebrity, but the attention did not stop. The little girl was still in her mother's arms. She seemed calmer now, resting her head against her mother's shoulder. The mother had not stopped holding her tightly since the rescue. Every so often, she glanced toward Malik, her eyes full of gratitude. Near the market entrance, a group of young workers replayed the station's surveillance footage on a large screen. The video showed the tram racing toward the platform, the girl standing dangerously close, and then Malik charging across the maintenance zone. His movements were fast but focused. When the image froze on the moment he grabbed her wrist, the crowd watching let out a collective breath. "That is the exact second he saved her," one of the workers said, pointing at the screen. "If he had been even half a second slower, they both would have been caught in the pull." An older man in a maintenance vest stepped forward. "I was here when it happened," he said. "I have worked near tram lines for 20 years. I have seen trained crew members freeze in fear when something like that happens. That boy did not freeze. He acted." A station news reporter had arrived by then, holding a small, hovering camera drone. She was speaking to people in the crowd, collecting stories. When she approached Malik, he stepped back. But the reporter smiled warmly. "I am not here to make you uncomfortable," she said. "But people want to know who you are. You have done something rare today." Malik shook his head. "I am just Malik. I fix drones and screens. That is all." "That is not all," the reporter replied. "You saved 2 lives in less than a minute. You crossed a danger zone twice while trams were running. You put yourself in harm's way without hesitation." Malik did not know how to respond, so he stayed quiet. The reporter seemed to understand. She turned to the hovering camera and spoke softly. "Viewers of New Haven 3, this is the boy at the center of today's events. His name is Malik Carter. He may not see himself as a hero, but many here will remember his actions for a very long time." The camera light blinked off, and the drone floated away. Malik let out a slow breath. He had never liked being in the spotlight. The maintenance worker Malik had pulled to safety walked over, still holding his toolkit. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "I owe you my life," he said. "I was so focused on repairing the control box that I did not hear the tram. If you had not been there, He stopped, shaking his head. "Thank you." Malik gave a small nod. "You are welcome." From the far side of the platform, a low melodic hum began to rise. Malik turned to see a small group of Akaran traders gathered together. They were singing in their own language, a slow and harmonious tune. An older human merchant nearby explained quietly, "That is a song of respect. They sing it when someone has shown great courage." The sound spread through the crowd, soft but powerful. It gave Malik a strange feeling in his chest, a mixture of pride and discomfort. He was not used to people looking at him this way. The crowd eventually began to thin, but the story of what had happened was already spreading far beyond the tram station. The colony's internal network carried the footage to homes, offices, and ships docked in orbit. Within an hour, it reached Earth and the Akaran Alliance's main data hub. Messages of praise began to flow in from places Malik had never even heard of. In one of the colony's administrative towers, the governor watched the video on a large display. "Keep an eye on this boy," she told her assistant. "He has the kind of courage that cannot be trained, the kind that changes how people see each other." Back on the platform, Malik finally managed to slip away from the remaining onlookers. He walked through the quieter side passages of the station, his mind still turning over everything that had happened. The sounds of the market seemed distant, now. He thought about the moment he had seen the girl by the track. He had not made a plan. There had been no time. He had simply moved, and then, only moments later, he had done it again for the worker. Most people would say he had been reckless. Maybe they were right. But Malik knew that if he faced the same situation tomorrow, he would act the same way. When he reached the residential sector, he stopped at a wide viewing window. Beyond the glass, stars shone brightly against the blackness of space. The colony floated silently in their light, a small human outpost among countless worlds. Malik wondered how many people out there had already seen the video. A passing resident recognized him and smiled. "I saw what you did today. Good work." Malik gave a quiet, "Thank you," and kept walking. He wanted to reach home, fix something simple, and remind himself of his normal life. But deep down, he knew that after today, his life might never be as quiet again. Malik woke the next morning to the soft hum of his small apartment. The city outside his window was just beginning to stir. Lights blinked on in neighboring buildings, transport pods moved along their tracks, and the distant sound of trams sliding across magnetic rails filled the air. Normally, this was just another day. Today, everything felt different. He checked his personal terminal. Messages flooded in from every direction. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, even strangers from other colonies had sent their congratulations. Malik scrolled through the notifications slowly, not wanting to believe it at first. The video of him saving the girl and the maintenance worker had gone viral across the entire network. News stations from Earth and neighboring star systems had picked up the story. The Akaran Alliance, known for their diplomacy and careful monitoring of human colonies, had sent a message of commendation. Malik read it aloud to himself. "Your courage and quick thinking have set a powerful example. The Akaran Alliance honors your bravery. Human resilience shines brightly in your actions." Malik felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never expected recognition from worlds beyond his colony. He had only acted because someone needed help. But now, the recognition made him feel both proud and nervous. At the same time, he noticed that people were reaching out to him for advice. Young engineers from nearby colonies wanted to know how he managed to stay calm in a life-threatening situation. Teachers wanted to share his story with students as an example of courage and responsibility. Even older citizens, who had lived through countless emergencies, wrote to express admiration for his quick thinking. Malik had always thought of himself as an ordinary boy. He fixed drones, repaired monitors, and occasionally helped with station maintenance. Never had he imagined his actions would inspire so many people. The message from the Akaran Alliance also included an invitation. They asked him to visit their diplomatic station in orbit to meet their leaders and speak with young cadets learning about emergency response. Malik hesitated at first. He had never left the colony for anything beyond the trade sectors or local shuttle trips. Yet the opportunity felt important. If he could show the Alliance that humans were capable of bravery, resourcefulness, and quick thinking, perhaps it could change how they viewed Earth's colonies. Malik spent the next few days helping the station recover from the incident. Engineers replaced damaged plates, recalibrated the magnetic rails, and double-checked safety systems. Every time someone thanked him in passing, he brushed it off with a small smile, saying, "I was just in the right place at the right time." Despite his modesty, the story continued to grow. News feeds carried clips of his actions to remote colonies where people had never even visited the station. Children watched the video over and over, imagining themselves acting with the same courage. Teachers used it to explain how quick thinking, calmness, and empathy could save lives. One evening, Malik sat in his small room, staring out at the stars. He thought about the girl and the maintenance worker. Were they safe now? Were they growing up, remembering how someone had saved them? The thought made him smile. This was bigger than fame or recognition. His actions had touched lives, and in some ways, inspired hope. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Malik opened it, to find his neighbor, an older engineer named Mara, holding a small hollow pad. "You need to see this," she said. Malik took it and saw a message from the governor herself. The governor had prepared a formal recognition ceremony in the colony's central hall. It would not only honor Malik's bravery, but also highlight how ordinary citizens could make extraordinary contributions in dangerous situations. The ceremony would be broadcast to other colonies and to Earth. Malik felt a wave of nervousness. He had never been the center of attention in any official capacity. He was a quiet, diligent worker who preferred to let others speak and act. Standing in front of dignitaries and interstellar audiences was not something he imagined for himself. Yet the day of the ceremony arrived. Malik walked into the central hall, greeted by applause. The girl and her mother were there, standing proudly in the front row. The maintenance worker waved at him from the side. Mara and several friends from his sector were in the audience as well. The governor spoke first. "Today, we honor Malik Carter, who risked his life to save others in a moment of great danger. His courage reminds us all that humanity is capable of remarkable acts when we put empathy and bravery before fear. His actions not only saved lives, but also strengthened the bond between humans and the Akaran Alliance." Malik listened quietly, humbled by every word. The applause continued, filling the hall with energy he had never felt before. Even the Akaran representatives in attendance bowed slightly, a sign of deep respect in their culture. After the ceremony, Malik was invited to speak. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of countless eyes on him. For a moment, he froze, thinking about what to say. Then he remembered the girl and the maintenance worker. He remembered the rush of fear, the pull of the magnetic field, and the quiet certainty that he had to act. "I did what anyone should do," Malik began, his voice steady. "I saw people in danger. I acted because it was the right thing to do. I do not consider myself a hero. Every person has the power to make a difference if they choose to act when it matters." His words were simple, but they resonated. People in the hall nodded, and even the young Akaran cadets listened closely. Malik realized then that courage was contagious. It did not need to be loud or showy. Even small actions could ripple across worlds. The ceremony ended with a standing ovation. Malik stepped outside afterward, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. He looked at the stars again and felt a sense of connection. He was part of something larger than himself. His actions had not only saved lives but also reminded everyone watching that humanity was capable of courage, compassion, and quick thinking. News of Malik's bravery continued to travel farther. Colonies in orbit, trade hubs in distant sectors, and cities on Earth all shared the story. His simple act of courage became a symbol of human resilience. The Akaran Alliance sent additional messages of support, emphasizing how important it was for all young humans to understand that courage and empathy could shape relationships across the galaxy. For Malik, life slowly returned to normal. He repaired drones, fixed screens, and helped with station maintenance as before. But he knew the world had changed. He had become a quiet symbol of hope, an example of humanity at its best. And every time he glanced at the stars, he felt the weight and the honor of what he had done, not because of fame or attention, but because he had acted when it truly mattered. Months had passed since the day Malik had saved the little girl and the maintenance worker. The colony had changed in small but meaningful ways. Safety systems had been upgraded, training programs had been improved, and young children often pointed at the stations and said, "That is where courage lives." Malik continued his ordinary work, fixing drones and repairing screens, but he now did so with a quiet awareness that the world was watching. One morning, Malik received a message from the governor. She had arranged for a special interstellar communication session. Humans and Akaran representatives from across the Alliance would participate. Malik was to speak about courage, responsibility, and human potential. He hesitated at first. Speaking to officials and cadets from distant worlds was intimidating. Yet he knew this was an opportunity to share a simple truth, that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. The day of the communication session, Malik stepped into the broadcast room. A large holoscreen displayed dozens of faces from the colonies, the orbiting stations, and Earth itself. Young cadets of the Akaran Alliance stared at him attentively, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and respect. Malik cleared his throat and began. "I am not a hero," he said. "I am just a person who saw people in danger and acted, that is all. But if my actions can teach anyone something, I hope it will be that courage and empathy are powerful. You do not need super strength or special tools to make a difference. You only need a willingness to act and a heart that cares." The holoscreen showed nods and attentive faces. One young Akaran cadet raised a hand. Malik smiled and invited him to speak. "In our training, we learn about bravery, but your actions show it in a human way," the cadet said. "You remind us that courage is not only about skill, it is about choice." Malik felt a warmth in his chest. It was not recognition for himself, but the realization that humanity, through simple acts, could inspire respect and admiration across worlds. His small act of saving a girl had become a symbol of hope and unity. After the session, the governor met him in person. She smiled warmly. "Malik, your actions have done more than save lives. You have changed how our neighbors and allies view humans. They see not just a species capable of technology, but a species capable of courage, compassion, and quick thinking." Malik nodded. He never sought fame or titles. He only acted because it was the right thing to do. Yet now he understood that actions like his could ripple across the galaxy, shaping perceptions and inspiring others. In the months that followed, the story of his courage became part of training materials. Young humans and Akaran cadets alike studied the incident, analyzing how calmness, quick thinking, and empathy had made the difference. Malik was never celebrated with statues or grand ceremonies. Instead, his legacy lived quietly in classrooms, stations, and conversations across multiple colonies. Every mention reminded people that ordinary individuals could achieve extraordinary outcomes. One evening, Malik visited the tram station where it all had begun. The little girl, now older and walking with more confidence, waved at him. Her mother smiled warmly. "Thank you again," she said. "You have given her a story she will carry forever." Malik smiled back. "It was nothing I would not do for anyone," he said. The girl ran off to play, laughing freely. Malik watched her for a moment, remembering the fear in her eyes the day he had rescued her. Now, that fear was gone, replaced by joy and curiosity about the world. As he walked away, Malik passed the maintenance area where the worker he had saved was now training new recruits. The worker paused, giving Malik a respectful nod. "You saved more than my life," he said. "You reminded us all that humans can rise to the occasion when it matters most." Malik continued home, feeling a quiet pride. He understood now that heroism was not measured by applause or recognition. It was measured by the courage to act when it was needed, by the willingness to place others before oneself, and by the way such actions could inspire countless others to do the same. In the following years, Malik's story became part of Human, and Akaran shared history. Schools taught it as an example of human resilience. Colonists told it to children to show them how courage looked in real life. Even distant colonies and space stations shared his tale, emphasizing that humans were capable of remarkable empathy and bravery. Malik lived a full life, quietly helping his community, repairing systems, and guiding younger generations. Though he never sought fame, he became a symbol of what it meant to be human: the courage to act, the wisdom to think quickly, and the heart to care for others. One clear night, Malik stood on the observation deck of the colony's tallest building. The stars stretched endlessly, a vast galaxy full of worlds, life, and possibilities. He remembered the moment he had acted without thought, simply following instinct. He smiled quietly to himself. That moment had changed more than just one life. It had shown the galaxy the best of what humans could be. As he gazed at the stars, he realized that heroism was not about one moment, but about a lifetime of choices. Every act of kindness, every decision to help, every risk taken for others added up to something greater than oneself. He had learned that courage could echo across worlds, leaving a mark far beyond the person who acted. Malik turned from the observation deck and walked home, the quiet hum of the colony around him. He felt at peace. The story of his courage had touched many, but more importantly, it had reminded him and countless others that humanity's strength was in its compassion, resilience, and the courage to rise when it mattered most. And as the stars glimmered above, humanity's story of courage continued to spread, one act at a time, inspiring generations to come.